The Silver Fox, Mick Malthouse, is our guest now. Welcome to you, Mick. Spring affects people differently. Hay fever?
Winning and losing, it doesn't matter.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's well, we've always said if you don't play with emotion and if you can't be emotionally involved in a game, give it up, because that's what AFL football's all about. And I went to the rugby last night and watched my son-in-law, his side, go down. It's a highly emotional charge, and I heard Lee just say before, which is very interesting, Lee, what you said was that you get a bit jealous about people, even though you've been out of the game for so long and you've been so successful yourself. That's a bit of a fear. You just say it now, and I guess the build-up, the whole build-up of that game was, and perhaps it's longer than that game, because I just felt last year so nervous before the finals, and I said to my wife, who's sitting over there, I said, I've never been so nervous. She said, you have, but you forget how nervous you get. But this year's taken on a different meaning again, because I know that it's going to conclude. Now, that could have just as easily been at three-quarter time, we don't make any advance from that 17 points. That's it for 40 years of football, and that's the thing that really, I guess, I didn't want to individualise. The last thing I ever want to do, because I've always preached team. This is a team involvement. This is a collective. This is us sharing the good things and the bad things. And I was desperate to keep it away from individual, and that's why I stayed in that box for as long as I could.
I can empathise with that, Mick, because that's just the emotion of a close game. I can't empathise. I try to, of your coaching mortality dates being set, and how are you sort of coping with that as an individual when you've got the team function to do?
Well, that's it, Lee. It's because I guess it's so unique that until you're actually part of it, and I didn't have any idea that emotionally it'd tie me up so much. And there's a hell of a lot's happened in the last 2 years. In fact, if I went back to 3 years, there's a lot. You know, outside of the fact, and again, it's individual stuff. But I've lost my father and lost my mother. I'm a grandparent. Oh, that softens you. I mean, being a father softens you. Being a grandfather softens you even more. All my boys, all my playing boys, I love them because you just see them individually. And I watched on Friday night, and I went into those rooms after a victory. And I knew a couple of players hadn't played well, and my inner soul was for them because they hadn't played well, and you feel as if you just want to put your arms around them, but they've got their own fathers, they've got their own mothers and this sort of stuff, but you've got to be careful about being too involved. But I've become very involved, and that 2 years or 3 years that we're talking about here is starting to reach a peak, and I know that it's going to be, I'm going to reach the top of the mountain, and there's going to be no tomorrow in terms of that 40 years that have been involved. It's just going to stop. Now, not many people have had that. We get a lot of coaches get sacked, and all of a sudden it happens to
Very
them.
rarely do you go into the day where you know that's going to happen.
And this is happening now. Yeah.
So what do you think on Sunday morning, win, lose or draw, Mick? You wake up, and what do you think you'll feel?
Oh, then that's something I could not even explain. I want it desperately to be a victory for. And Travis was great when he said, "We do it for the supporters." And I look at those Collingwood supporters, and that shot you showed with Travis. I tend to, when I watch football, I very rarely see a goal kicked. I always watch behind and in front and just see where players are positioned. So I have to go back later on and see where, if the goal was kicked or where it was kicked from and that sort of stuff. But that shot was with Travis. But you take Travis out of there and you look at the crowd at the back. This is the emotion, the raw emotion of football. That's why people are in here now, and they're all wearing different colours. And I notice those girls in the front with Richmond on them. And it's been a long time, girls, since you've won a premiership. I can remember that. But that's what we encapsulate, is that raw passion. How am I going to feel on Sunday morning? Hopefully victorious, and if not, well, knowing we've given our best shot.
How do you separate it? How do you separate yourself from the team, or not allow the media to focus on the end of a career of Mick Malthouse this week? How are you going to distance that from the group, or do you embrace that, or because the players seem to be really in love with you and wanting to do it for you right now?
Oh no, it certainly won't be mentioned. That's first and foremost. But we've got enough on our plate to worry. The individual stuff this week will be about Jolly, about Reid, about Maxwell, about the team. They're the boys that have taken the big shots over the weekend. So any individual stuff will be about the player group, and then we'll condense that and bring it back to a team environment anyway, which no doubt Geelong will do, and any of the good sides will always have done that. You cannot afford one person or an individual, I was going to say, the one person's plight to interfere with the team. And my boys understand that, the club knows that, and we will be doing everything for the team. Now, how they feel individually and how I feel individually it'll be hidden, and it'll be well camouflaged. And it won't be false, it won't be put away and made out that it's what it should be and what it can be and what it possibly will be. It'll just get down to us picking the best side, training up, freshening up, being ready for a very good football side to encounter. And we've just played a great football side. So we are very humbled in our winning against a very, very good football side to come forward and now play one of the great sides over that's been in existence for 5 or 6 years. We go back to Brisbane's probably the last side that had that dominance for any length of time. Geelong have now got it. We want to take it off them.
On Friday night, Collingwood been so dominant for the year 22, I think it was, going into the prelim final for the first cutthroat game. Did you feel the players, knowing them obviously as intimately as you do, that you might have tensed up a little bit?
No doubt. It's a good call, Tom. Very good call. I said day one, I said we've got a get out of jail ticket. This is round one, and anyone who's won a premiership, you've got that ticket, and that'll get you through the first 4 or 5 games when people go, oh, we'll hope we get close. At some stage that ticket evaporates or falls away, and we've held that for a long, long time. And as I said to them after that West Coast game, first, second, third and fourth sides get that opportunity, but you only get it in the first week. From there on, it's knockout. And I just thought our boys started to were a bit tense, and knowing that this finishing on top meant so much, but really what did it mean? It meant that if you got beaten, it meant nothing. And as a consequence, our player group, I believe, played within themselves to the point of safety more so than letting themselves go, which we know we can do. So I think the gloves are off now. I think the bit of pressure's been lifted, and we can go back and say, well, okay, the ticket's gone. We move forward, and we can now open up.
Fascinating discussion. I might have to ring David Leake and get this extended by an hour. Tell me, Mick, I got an early copy of your book during the week. The ox is slow, but the earth is patient, and it comes out this week. I was fascinated by your final conversation with your mother, and she said to you, I'm really concerned about the pressure of coaching and what it's doing to you.
To bring that back a bit, it was a few hours before she died, and she said to me, I'm really worried about you, Michael. And I said, Mum, what do you worry about me for the way you are? And she was she loved the football, and she, when I spoke to her, I spoke to Mum a fair bit on the phone, and she'd be always saying to me about, I really worry about you. And I said, stop listening to radios and watching TVs, because half your worry will go straight away.
Well, she wouldn't have been happy watching on Friday night, I don't reckon, but one thing that must give you a bit of, or a sleepless night at least, is telling a player that they won't play this weekend, and I assume you're going to have to do that at some point.
That's one of the hardest. The hardest one of all is to chop a player completely from your list. And that's his dreams, and you're taking a dream away. I dream maker and dream breaker, it really doesn't sit too well with me. In fact, this year, thankfully, I don't have to do that. But as far as the grand final goes, yes, we did it with Leon Davis last year, and he's rebounded. He'll never forget that, though, and we understand that. But the boys also understand that the role has to be played out by someone, and you've got to be the deliverer of that news, but you've also got to make the best of your 22 players. Premierships aren't won with 22, but there's only 22 medals, and that's the hardship of it.
You got 6 days to get the players up and going. You spoke yesterday about Ben Reid and Darren Jolly. Suspect that Darren Jolly might be a little bit more tender than in Ben Reid. Is that a fair enough assessment?
Well, as at yesterday, they're both pretty comfortable. Medical staff seem to think that they've both got, both should play. So how do you judge one more than the other?
With certain type of injuries, the power of the mind, I mean, players seem to get up for grand finals when they couldn't get at them at any other time. If you reckon there's a will aspect
Absolutely.
to the physical abilities?
Absolutely. And I just think that you've played many games, Tommy. You've played both premiership coaches, premiership players. You just know that there's an element that's hidden away somewhere that will drive you that extra inch, that extra yard, and you find that extra space. It's Thomas's tackle. Now, that's his first game in 4 weeks, and he was no right to be there, probably because he was pretty well cooked at that time, and he got there. And we will find that time and time again. The difference between being able to get through a match and not being able to get through a match, that's got to be an honesty program. It's like Simon Presti-Comeau of last year, who was outstanding in saying, I don't think I could match Riewoldt all day. And that's what I want from a player, to be honest.
You heard you on radio on Robbo's program talking about Chris Tarant, and so that's we've just been talking about the physical requirements. He's obviously been remarkable for you this year.
Outstanding, and mentally, of course. Yeah. He's going through a few traumas at the moment with his dad. But I've got to say, I've never seen a person change, in my mind, his personality or his want to succeed for the team, ever. I've got to say, in the 40 years I've been involved in the game, he is clearly the standout in that regard. And that would give me the greatest pleasure to see he and Leon Davis stand up with that medal, and all the other boys, but those two in particular because of what's happened and where they've come from, and throw in Andrew Cracker, which is a wonderful football story. So Chris Tarant itself is a wonderful football story.
Mick, a lot of speculation. Do you think Saturday will be your last game as a coach?
Yes, I do.
Or forever?
Yep.
So you won't, is that decision come quickly to you? Because people are suspecting that you'll go a year out, and that drive in you, which we see almost weekly, will drive you again to coach.
I've got to be careful because my wife's sitting there.
She doesn't want you. She doesn't want you to coach.
Yes or no?
No. So have you decided in your head that you're not going to coach again?
It's a bit like, again, I've got something to learn from here, and that's Lee. You say no, and somewhere down here says perhaps, but I'm saying right now there's no perhaps. This is a no.
I've got to tell you a story because
this is the end.
I asked him yesterday because I wrote a piece saying that Lee Matthews should coach Melbourne, and you jokingly said to me, "No one asked me." And you've always said never say never, but even to the end, you said there's just that little bit in you.
Well, Mick, Tommy Hafey still probably would coach again at 80 if he was asked. So there's always a little part within you, but then sometimes your mind has to override that little bit. And well, it's happened for me, and well, as you say right here, it's happened for you.
Your coach and my coach, Alan Jeans, was a coach to the end. He wasn't coaching, but he was a coach to the end. And I think that's what it'll always be with me. I can't just give up that competitiveness, but it is at some stage in life you've got to say, let's be fair, and life's too long, in this case, to go and be selfish for so long. You've got to be able to give something back.
We've got 35 seconds to go. Will you be at Collingwood next year, Mick?
Oh, that's still be worked out.
Okay.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful to have you.
It's been a pleasure.
Mick Malthouse, he's a big part of the Saturday, enormous. Game day.